So this is part two. I said I would follow up with the Shapiro part that's wrong. Okay, so I went into how Jordan Peterson, the way he explains Jesus, he needs it to fit in this educational box. That's the problem with the higher education. Although a brilliant, brilliant man, it's because of that brilliance that it gets him in trouble because he has to break out of the brilliant box. He's trying to fit Jesus into his education and his psychology, and yeah, it doesn't work. Shapiro, on the other hand, is the Old Testament, okay? Jewish, okay? So they don't really acknowledge the New Testament. So for many reasons, that's a problem, but we don't force that on anybody. But let's just think back to the Old Testament, because you can put the pieces together here if you're not overeducated. The beginning, very beginning, God, created it all, created man, all that. Then God was raising a nation, raising a people, okay, and so many went astray, because we were prone to complaining and whining and all of that stuff. And God has a lot of patience, but then, the Baal worshiping, the falling into these false idol stuff, yeah, God eventually just hands you over. Okay, that's what you want to do. You see how that worked. You'll see how that worked out for you in that. And so what the biggest problem with the whole, with people that say, no, we just stick to the Old Testament, is that the New Testament was that same God, but in human form. And so Ben Shapiro believes that it's very much about the acts, the works. No, it's not. It's not. The works come once your heart's been regenerated. Jesus talks about this. So what was happening in the Old Testament, and you could see how God was realizing it. So you could see why God would need to come in a form of man to try to help the people, because everybody was going to be lost otherwise. Because what was happening is everybody got used to just, I got to go kill the ox, I got to go kill the lamb, whatever the animal was, that they had to sacrifice. Because in the Old Testament, they had to sacrifice. And the point to that was God trying to actually make so that they would build empathy, so that they would learn empathy, so that they would feel bad that the animal, this innocent animal who didn't do anything wrong, now has to die because of your sin. That was the point to it. May seem harsh, but I kind of get it in a way. I mean, it's not something we should do, like to teach empathy, but that's what God was trying to do, was so that they would feel remorse for the sin. And what ended up happening is, at the beginning, but it got to this point where it just became like, yep, I just got to go kill the animal and I'm good. Where the ritual mattered, but there was no real remorse for it. Like they just thought, I'm good with God. It's the same thing with the New Testament churchgoers. I'm not saying it's bad to go to church. I'm just saying those people that think that, I'm good with God. I go to church every Sunday. Yeah, if you don't have a relationship with God, then no, you don't. I mean, he doesn't know you. There's a reason it talks about how Jesus or God says, I never knew you. I never knew you. So you could go to church every single Sunday, but if you don't have a personal relationship talking to God, and that may seem strange in this world, it would. Because, you can't have a relationship. Well, yeah, you can. It's just all these people that say that you can't, it kills me, these people. All these people, they say there's no evidence. They don't even know if there's evidence. They've never tried it. Again, because it's like the science. They want to find it with their microscopes. No, there's a reason that God did it the way that he did. Because you would only be one way that you could get there. And so both of these guys, they fall into the trap. They fall into the trap of, first of all, their education. And they fall into the traps of not recognizing that There's a reason that Jesus said to get to the Father, you have to go through me. The New Testament was closing out the Old. So although I wouldn't condemn any Jews or anything like that, it's just that I would say to them, your people back in the day when Jesus walked the earth, not all of them, but your leaders of the church, your experts of the church, they didn't recognize Jesus. So do you think maybe you should like play it safe here and get to know Jesus and realize that the New Testament was closing out the Old? It didn't mean the Old Testament didn't matter, but it meant that times had changed. Times were changing, and Jesus came because he realized it was no good to keep having these animals be sacrificed, because people that were sacrificing them weren't learning they weren't learning the lesson. They weren't remorseful. So why let the poor animal suffer and go and be slaughtered when they're not even remorseful? It just became like, oh, now I can go sin, but I'll be forgiven because I've done this sacrifice. That's what Ben Shapiro is basically. This whole, just sticking to the Old Testament doctrine is wrong too, because that's the reason right there. Because no, God says your works don't matter. Even if let's say you do all these good works, it makes no points with God, because both of these men should realize that there's a hidden motive when it's truly coming from when your heart's regenerated, and you're truly walking that walk. First of all, you're not going to tell anybody. You're not going to be doing good deeds where you're telling people about it. And I'm not saying that that's what they're doing, but with the Jews it is. It's about doing all of these different rituals, just like with the Catholics, it's about doing the rosary and this, okay? And it's like, no, God does not care about any of that, because that's really why he sent Jesus. People were they were being led astray because they thought, oh, they're fine as long as they kill this animal. Not realizing the whole point why God had them kill the animal is so they'd feel bad that an innocent person, or not person, but an innocent animal had to suffer because of their poor actions. They didn't have any remorse. They were just killing the animal. So what was the final sacrifice? Because God wanted the sacrifices over. God made himself the final sacrifice, knowing that what this world would do to him, knowing that none of the leaders of the church were getting it, and they still don't, because they've continued on and don't even acknowledge the New Testament. Again, I'm not bashing Jews. I'm just saying you're making the same mistake the leaders did back then, and there's a reason Jesus didn't go to you guys. He didn't go to you guys that were the experts of the doctrine, because he knew you had it wrong. So it might be a good idea to realize that it's the same thing repeating again. You guys have just gone on to carry on the same doctrine, and both of these people would be considered experts in these fields, and they both have it wrong. Proving why Jesus went to the nobodies. It's that simple. It's that simple. And God himself made himself the final sacrifice. Not so that you would take on the burdens of the world and realize that's what he wanted you to do. No, because he's God. You are not God. There's a lot of people out there that think, we can transcend into God. No. If man could do that, we would be we've gotten into a worse place over time. Not better, not morally. Because you can't be a moral society with people that fake being about God, that think works are going to get you to God, or think that brilliance or the higher educated will get you to God. Both are wrong. Who are the people today that you see that truly know the Spirit of God? The nobodies.